So yes, I think we can turn it over to you on Russia. Kind of I've kind of given the House the news events leading up to today.
Okay. So, all right. What is happening in Russia, as far as I see it, I've spent some time trying to read into what is going on, and I've come to certain conclusions. And my conclusions are what I call the Putin doctrine. What do I mean by the Putin doctrine? There are three main areas. One is the fact that Russia is rejecting what I will call liberal democracy and its concomitant ideologies of human rights, Western democracy, and state sovereignty. That's why they're attacking Ukraine, because as you all know, they are going for regime change, because the argument is that the regime that's in Ukraine is too pro-West, espousing human rights, democracy, and so on and so forth, and Russia's rejection of Ukrainian sovereignty. Then the second aspect of what I call the Putin doctrine is what Putin, Russia, keep on hammering on, which is territorial connection with adjacent states. And in this particular case of Ukraine, they are saying, and that's the argument, and I heard the foreign minister Lavrov saying that they don't think Ukraine is a legitimate sovereign state, that Ukraine has a long historical connection with Russia, and that therefore Russia has the right to reclaim Ukraine. The third aspect of what I call the Putin doctrine, and which they applied not only to Ukraine, but applying to adjacent countries like Georgia, Crimea, and don't be surprised tomorrow if they launch it with respect to Finland. The idea Russia is pushing is that there's ethnic and linguistic connection between Russia and those adjacent countries. When I say adjacent countries, countries that share a common border with Russia. We've seen this happen, and many people don't realize Russia attacked Finland in 1939, and that was in agreement with Hitler. When Hitler was doing his thing, in the West, attacking Poland, attacking France, attacking Belgium, and attacking Holland, and so on. Putin, sorry, not Putin, it was one other time. The Soviet Union was doing his own thing on the other end. Russia was doing its own thing, attacking Finland. And most of these claims was that it has ethnic connection. And in the recent past, we've seen Russia attacking Georgia, claiming that there's an ethnic connection between Georgia, or at least part of Georgia, Ossetia, and Abkhazia with Russia. They moved on, and you know the story. This is a pattern of Russian action. They attack a country, they claim that has Russian connection, they seize those countries, proclaim them an independent state, and a few months later, those countries come and apply to join Russia. This is their strategy, and you must give it to them. They did that exactly the same thing with the Crimea. And then we now see the same thing happening with Ukraine, saying there are two provinces in Ukraine that are Russian-speaking, has Russian people, they're ethnically connected, and so on and so forth. You will hear that when they grab them, they have already proclaimed them independent states, recognized only by Russia, always by Russia alone. Then after that recognition, what they then do is they say those states are applied to join Russia. Now, I would argue that this doctrine portends dangerous implications for Ambazonia, and Ambazonia must reject it. What is the danger? An acceptance and application of this doctrine in the context of Ambazonia would lead to the extinction of Ambazonia as a polity, as a country, and as a state. Ambazonia will cease to exist. Its people will cease to exist as such. Cameroon population transfer to the territory of Ambazonia will result in the eventual elimination of the people of Ambazonia. There will be physical elimination, cultural destruction, and population dilution to the point of complete loss of identity. This, as I see it, will be the ultimate genocide, both physical and cultural. It will happen in just a few years, in just a decade or two. Let's not have any mistake about it. And if anybody has any mistake, please just look at what China has done with respect to Tibet. If anybody knows that story, China population transfer to Tibet has eventually just nullified the Tibetan population in Tibet. And you can go and see, there are the Chinese who are there. These things happen. Already we've seen in Africa here, authoritarian states that have concluded military pacts with Russia. Now, this is what some observers have noted, to say that these military alliances are alliances of autocratic states. And if you look at, just check, there are 30 African countries that have signed this pact with Russia. Check all of them. Not a single one of them is a democratic country. All of them border of, regime. I think we should distinguish between regime and country. Regime is whoever is in power and decide to do these things. All of them are autocracies. So when you look at that, if we want to analyze it, come to the Ambazonian population situation, I would tell you that what is happening, it's a friend of mine who actually made a point, and I think a very pointed point, Emile Mondua, who said, Russia today is not the Soviet Union of yesterday. And I think African countries, the African regime that rushed to Russia, they're too blinded. They don't even know their own history. So the rush to Russia in the mistaken belief that Russia today is the Soviet Union of yesterday. But Russia today is not the Soviet Union of yesterday. Neither is China. The China of today is not the China of Mao Zedong. No. The old anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism ideology of yesterday is dead. That is dead. So what you have today are the Chinese and the Russians who have become themselves imperialists and colonialists, and in some cases even worse than the West was. Go and ask anybody in Tibet. Go and ask anybody who is in the former Soviet republics. They will tell you. What these countries have been doing, both China and Russia, is expansion. They want to build the old, in the case of Russia. Russia has been dreaming, and Putin wants to go down in history as the person who reconstituted the old Soviet Union. Putin has on many occasions expressed the view that the collapse of the Soviet Union was a terrible thing for Russia. And that therefore, he sees himself as somebody who must reconstitute that old Soviet Union. And beginning, of course, by grabbing this, what we may call gnawing into all these territories, getting under the pretext that, or the ethnically limited, related, or they had some territorial link with Russia. Of course, they did have. Stalin was from Georgia. I visited, myself and my family visited there when we saw Stalin's home there in Georgia. Khrushchev was from Ukraine, all this. But that means that has nothing to do with the fact that those countries are sovereign state. And in the case of Ukraine, and many people don't know these things, and Russia will never tell you. Ukraine was one of the 51 founding members of the United Nations. Long before you had all these African countries making a lot of noise now, came into the scene. So anybody denying Ukrainian sovereignty and independence actually is swimming against the current of history. That's not the case. Now, I want to suggest to you that what is happening, if you look at the situation in which Ambazonia is at different levels, you then understand why I think, and I'm submitting that we need to reject what Russia is doing to Ukraine. First, a level of geopolitics, that of geography, the economic potential, religion, ethnicity, liberal democracy, and my suggestion at the end, the conclusion, what I call the permanent neutralization of Ambazonia as a way of getting ourselves out of this quagmire. Now, if you look at the geopolitics, look at where Ambazonia is. Ambazonia is sandwiched between two bigger neighbors, right? To the west, you have Nigeria, and to the east, you have French Cameroon. It is not only sandwiched between these two big countries, but it also serves as a bridge between what still remains essentially French Equatorial Africa and West Africa, that is demographically English speaking, if you want to understand what I mean in terms of population, English speakers dominate West Africa. Then if you look now, the southern end of Ambazonia, we have our territorial sea. Many people have not studied that very well. I mean, I recommend you to go and read geopolitics. And you then understand why Ambazonia is so sensitive. Ambazonia's coast is at the eastern end of the Gulf of Guinea. The Gulf of Guinea is where you have the sea lane traffic between, on the Atlantic, on the West African coast, down to the Southern African coast. The ships that pass, they do not go on the southern end of Equatorial Guinea, that is Malabo. No. They pass through the Gulf of Guinea here, where you have Ambazonia's territorial sea. So Ambazonia's territorial sea overlooks these sea lanes. If you look at it there, the sea lanes, which is very critical for shipping, very critical for stopping this piracy on the Gulf of Guinea. And for us, very critical, and I'll come to that to show you the economic aspect of it, but strategically from a military point of view, Ambazonia sea territorial waters has two very important locations. One, if you look at it, thank you for this map. If you look at it, you will see what, if you look at it carefully, you'll find there, look at where they put the limbe there, but you will not see this in. But there you have the Manao Bay, which is between 200 to 600 meters in depth. Now, that Manao Bay is a very important facility for a naval base. And a naval base that can take warships and also a submarine. Perhaps not the biggest type of submarines, except perhaps if you deep in the waters. Then you see. And the British, you see, it's called Manao Bay. Many people don't realize, why the British call it Manao Bay? That is where the British warships in the First World War would come and hide. And even going back to history, during the anti-colonial slave trade, they would come and hide there to monitor traffic through the Gulf of Guinea, to be able to intercept ships. That's where they were hiding. It's a very important facility. Now, of course, under French Cameroon occupation, because they don't have that an equivalent kind of a facility. The second facility, which is very important for military purposes, is off the coast of Debonisha. That is where, for a long time, since the 60s, the World Bank has been arguing that they should build a deep sea port. Such a deep sea port, of course, not just be just a port. We have also a naval facility there where you have ship repairs also. You have a place where you have the Navy ships can come there and so on. So it's not just a question of having just a place where cargo ships just come and go. No. It will be bigger than that. Now, Ambazonia is the only place along the whole of the Gulf of Guinea that has those kind of facilities. In Nigeria, you don't have an equivalent kind of facility. In fact, in the days when we were in Nigeria, Manobe was so important. That when the Nigerian ships were coming to. And you don't have any such thing right up to Ghana. You go right up to Gambia, right there. You don't have. So you begin to understand, why Ambazonian coast, that the geography is so important. So that's geographical on it. If you move now towards the north of Ambazonia, what are you going to see? Interesting scenarios. You will find that Ambazonia is kind of locked in between two Muslim entities. Look at the Muslim Nigeria there, and look at the Muslim French Cameroon. And I put it to you that that is where we are going to have trouble in the future with Muslim jihadists threatening Ambazonia. Coming down. Already we know that in places like Bui, in places like Donga Mantum, in places like Menchum, French Cameroon has already hired jihadists. Dampule there is a centerpiece. There's a man they call Dampule, what I forgot the other name. But he's a centerpiece, kind of acting like a recruiting agency for all of these Muslim jihadists, whose job is to support French Cameroon in this war of genocide against Ambazonia, but also to help to spread Muslim southwest thrust. Now, let me point out to you that for a long time, the Muslims who were already settled in Nigeria, they had what we call the Sokoto Caliphate. And that Sokoto Caliphate extended right down to Adamawa in French Cameroon. People had never understood why they call it Adamawa. It's Adamawa because Osman Danfodo's son, Adama, had that religious mission to conquer. And their view was to plant the Quran down the sea. So that conquest came right down there, and the place is called Adamawa, the name after Adama. So recent Boko Haram incursion into French Cameroon has been to re-establish that Sokoto Caliphate, which was in Nigeria. And recall that this Sokoto Caliphate exists until early 19th century. And they would have come right down, who knows, right down in places like Yaoundé and so on, had it not been that the Germans decided their colonization. And the Germans and the Muslims ended there in that Adamawa area there, and they stopped. And the Muslim rulers continued to rule the place just as much as they were ruling. Only that now their allegiance was not paid to the Emir of Sokoto, but now to the Germans. But otherwise, they were allowed to behave just exactly as they have been doing in those days. So all these people you find from Adamawa right to Garwa, Mara, all of those Muslim leaders there, they were paying allegiance to who? To the Sokoto Caliphate there in Sokoto, the Emir of Sokoto. One of the reasons why the British separated the Southern Cameroons from Northern Cameroon was precisely on that basis. That look, if you look at the Northern British Cameroon, Southern British Cameroon, there were two different territories completely. Northern British Cameroon was part of that Sokoto Empire. And the immediate rulers were answerable to the Emir in Yola. If you look at the map, you will see that there's a gap between the Southern Cameroon and Northern Cameroon, what they call the Yola Arc. That's why the territories were not continuous, because the Muslims insisted that that is part of the caliphate, and they must have full control over it. And the British accepted, like the Germans did. Nothing was changed. So the first thing, therefore, in terms of geopolitics, you will see that Ambazonia is in a very, very sensitive position, very, very sensitive. Geographically, anybody, if you look at Ambazonia, amazingly, it is like it has been surrounded by a natural wall. Look at it. The only opening is seawards, the coastal area. But if you look at this side here, you start from Ndian. The moment you start going to Mani, others find hills, climbing right up and going right to Bui. Hills there. And then you start coming Bui, then you start coming down, the Bamenda Highlands, Bamenda Highlands, you go down to Libialem, and you go there. All of those are hills. So you find a country that's like have a protective natural barrier surrounded by hills. The only opening being the gap between Waband and River Mungu and at Ndian there, at the Bakassi Peninsula. Now, if you add to that the fact that the Akwa Yafe River, which is a boundary between Ambazonia and Nigeria, that river and the way the International Court of Justice trace the boundary between Ambazonia and Nigeria, that boundary projects into the sea to a tri-point with Equatorial Guinea. And the reason why Nigeria has been crying is because the effect of that boundary is that it kind of has a blocking effect on Calabar. It has kind of blocking effect on Calabar. And Nigeria kept off. If you look at that, that's right. You see that boundary, you see how it comes right down. Now, if it comes, you push it right down towards the sea, you see where Calabar is, and you see that's where that's Calabar towards that side that you see there. And Nigerian complaint was that strategically, this disadvantages Nigeria, and that therefore they wanted a boundary not to be here at Akwa Yafe here, but Rio de Re on this other side here. But of course, they lost that case. Now that boundary projects like this, which means that Nigeria doesn't have just the kind of free access which you can go towards Calabar as it is. That's one of Nigeria's persistent complaints. Now, if you now shift map and go to where we have French Cameroon, we have exactly a replica of the same situation as regard our River Mungu that is the boundary with French Cameroon. When you project that boundary, yes, if you project our boundary there, seawards, you see that dotted line as it goes down towards the sea. You see where it showed southwest, yes, push it, go around and towards the sea now. If you see, you project that boundary, according to the law of the sea, that boundary will come laterally towards the sea, yes, like that, laterally. What that means, it also has a blocking effect on the Douala, what they call it, Douala estuary, which has an effect on that shipping. Look at where our boundary comes from, like that. I pointed this out to you for you to begin to see how sensitive Ambazonia is, how Nigeria and French Cameroon would both be fighting. And I can tell you this, they covet Ambazonia. They covet Ambazonia first also because of the economic potential which you have, starting from Ndian there, the Bakassi Peninsula, which is oil, which is gas, which is fish stocks. Most people don't realize and don't talk about it. That's one of the greatest places in the world with fish, variety of fish stocks. We will have to train our people how to fish, to get that fish in that area there, off the coast of the Bakassi Peninsula. Now, so you have gas, you have oil, you have fish stocks. Now, when you come to this other side here, and they've been kind of hush-hush about it, The Tico Muselele area there, which you find, is evidence, and people have said it. There's onshore oil there. Now, you don't expect French come to say this thing because it will make us have big head, as they put it. So again, they keep it quiet, they don't say it. But it has onshore oil in that area. Now, if you take away even all of this thing about the oil and so on, arguably the most fertile area which you can find on the West African coast for agricultural farming is around here in Ambazonia here. That's why the CDC came, where the Germans came, the CDC. And then if you move forward, upwards, towards Mount Faye, again, is rich in mineral resources. People only know about the salt. They don't know about the oil there, and they don't know about the what they call the building material, kind of clay kind of thing, which you use for all kind of construction of buildings and so on there in Mount Faye.
This man is exploiting for himself.
Yes. And as you move forward up, you get towards the Bamenda area, you get to Biya and so on and so forth. Something they've been keeping very quiet, but we now know they have minerals there like coltan and so on and so forth. Even in the Andes, it's supposed to be gold somewhere. Now, the point of you have an area, small little Ambazonia, and almost it's small, comparatively small. It has a concentration of so many things, so many that either of his neighbor would want to grab it. Why would they want to grab it? Not only just because of the geographical area, which is very strategic, not only for geopolitical reasons also, not only for economic potential, but there's also two very important issues, religion and ethnicity. Religion, like I pointed out, we have in the northern part of Ambazonia, the Muslim breathing down our throats from French Cameroon and from Nigeria. I've already mentioned the whole question about the Sokoto Caliphate, which Boko Haram wants to revive. And that is because Osman Danfodio had identified Nigeria as ripe for Muslim conquest. And if you look at the map of Nigeria, you know, they had gone right down the whole of Yoruba area. I think the only place that resisted them was Igbo land and the southeastern people. Part of Yoruba virtually has aligned itself, has a large Muslim population there. You know, even French Cameroon has a very about something like calculated to about some 30% or 35% Muslim population. And the Muslims have been pushing downwards. They have two very significant mosques, one in Yaoundé and one in Douala, which are hotbeds of the jihadists when they meet in those mosques, the big mosques which you find in those areas. And the Muslim population in places like Douala has just been increasing exponentially. They have been pushing towards places like Victoria. And in Victoria, what are they doing? They are bribing young men, young people, promising them jobs, buying them motorcycles to get them away from their Christian religion and to become Muslims. Go to Newtown in Victoria, find out what is happening there. The same phenomenon you find in Bamenda as a push down to Old Town, see what they are doing. This is a planned Muslim takeover of what is essentially a Christian territory, a Christian nation, as it were, without formally declaring itself as a Christian nation. But Ambazonia is about 90% Christian. And being Christian, therefore, is necessarily antagonistic to Muslims. And if you listen to ISIS have made it very clear that the Muslims are always expanding. That is their philosophy. They need to expand, Take a look at the map of Africa. The whole Sahara is gone. They're pushing downwards. The only place where they've not been able to get any foothold is Southern Africa. But recently, you all know what is happening in Mozambique. That's where they're trying to thrust to come in. And if they get into Mozambique successfully, you can be sure next will be South Africa and places like that. So this is very, very serious. And more seriously is the ethnic claims that both French Cameroon and Nigeria are making. What is Nigeria saying? Nigeria makes one political argument that the Southern Cameroon seceded from, that's the word they use, that we seceded from Nigeria. Interesting. French Cameroon is accusing us of secession. Nigeria is accusing us of secession. We are secessionists every time. So Nigeria's argument is that we seceded from Nigeria, and that the plebiscite vote was actually gotten by a fraud. They had people from French Cameroon who infiltrated into the Southern Cameroons and swelled the pro-French Cameroon vote. And because of that, we went to Nigeria, whereas we should not actually have gone to, we went to French Cameroon, whereas actually we should not have gone. We would have gone to stay with Nigeria. The argument is basically historical, cultural, and linguistic. The argument is, look, there's no other place in the world. We were almost 50 years with Nigeria, administered by the British, 45 years. And it was a done deal as far as the British were concerned that we were just going to go to Nigeria. We associated with them, we intermarried, we had the same kind, basically kind of culture with them, the same kind of music, high life, everybody was playing high life in those days and so on and so forth. And we knew Nigeria, whereas French Cameroon, nobody knew what French Cameroon was, except the weird stories of heads being cut and exhibited on roadsides and so on and so forth. So French Cameroon was really a strange country, an unknown quantity, whereas Nigeria was. We had one constitution in Nigeria up till 1960 when Nigeria had independence. We were part of Nigeria. So Nigeria had every reason to feel that, well, we were part of Nigeria, and that through a fraudulent vote at the plebiscite, we went to French Cameroon, whereas naturally would have come out to be with Nigeria, they say. For that reason, Nigeria still thinks it has a claim to the Southern Cameroons. If you look at the map that Nigeria put out, and the map still exists. If I don't know whether Francis, if you have that map, or Edmond, you will see there that we are put as part of Nigeria. We're not part of French Cameroon. We are part of Nigeria. And therefore, you can easily understand the statement that Murtala Mohammed, the Nigerian president, who said, as far as Nigeria is concerned, the Nigerian boundary is where? At the Mungu. That's what he said. It's at the Mungu. All of Ambazina is part of Nigeria. And that claim has not been abandoned. It hasn't. I would suggest to you that that claim is part of the reason why you have this conflict between Nigeria and French Cameroon, a conflict which now appears to have been lessened just because they appear to have a common enemy, Ambazina, to face. Now, there's another map which shows Nigerian map. Okay, the current Nigerian. If you look at the Nigerian map, West Cameroon this Ambazina does not exist. Doesn't show there. So, I said the current situation you have between French Cameroon and Nigeria is just now it's just temporary, like a situation where it's okay, let's just cool down. And because you have a Muslim leader who is in Nigeria and who has a very negative attitude towards Ambazonia, and that coincides the negative attitude which French Cameroon has in Nigeria. But Nigeria's negative attitude is not necessarily because they support French Cameroon, but because they want Ambazonia itself. The Muslims want Ambazonia to be part of it, the old Muslim empire. And you can therefore understand why in 1961, many of our people don't realize it. In 1961, after the plebiscite vote, the Northern Cameroon went to Nigeria. French Cameroon, through Amadou Ahidjo, was so angry that he declared a day of mourning. What did he say? He said the Northern Cameroon had been stolen from Cameroon by the British and given to Nigeria. And that as far as she was concerned, that is like when Germany seized Alsace-Lorraine from France. And that one day, they hope the Northern Cameroons will come back to Cameroon. Now, Ahijo's calculation was because he wanted the Northern correct. Look at this map here. You will see there that as far as Nigeria is concerned, the boundary there is at the Mungu there. We are part of Nigeria. We are part of Nigeria. So they were making this claim. So when Ahijo made this stupid thing of declaring a day of mourning, 1st June 1960 of every year to be a day of mourning, I think Nigeria was not amused. The United Nations was not amused. They told France, and France told French Cameroon, and they quickly stopped the nonsense of a day of mourning. That ended. You never heard anything about day of mourning anymore, didn't come. But Ahijo's calculation was that he needed to increase his Hausa Fulani constituency, the 1 million votes coming from British Northern Cameroon. And that would strengthen his hand against the subversive Southerners in French Cameroon. That is to say, the Bamileke, the Bassa, the Doualapo, and so on. So when Ahijo lost that one, he kind of said, oh, so my political fate is finished. These people have gone. Ahijo was more concerned with the loss of Northern Cameroon. He never celebrated the fact that we joined French Cameroon. No. It was, in fact, sorrow. He never wanted. What he wanted was the Northern Cameroons. That was what he wanted. So you had this rivalry between Nigeria and French Cameroon born out of that, but also out of the fact that Ambazonia is leaning too much towards Nigeria. And French Cameroon has always spoken about the potential imperialism of Nigeria. That's part of their foreign relations system we have policy. They say they must be very, very skeptical of Nigeria. And they will never, never accept Nigeria because Nigeria is potentially imperialist. What they mean by that is that Nigeria has its eyes on grabbing adjacent territories, like Putin has been doing, you know. So they look at Nigeria with one eye and sleep with one eye. Don't mind whatever they do with Nigeria. And that is why you see, but for the insistence of the World Bank having that Enugu-Bamenda road, French Cameroon, for the past half a century, refused to have that road. And the French told them that if you have it, what that means is that Ambazonia would turn westwards towards Nigeria than towards eastwards towards French Cameroon, as they had hoped. But because of the relationship with Nigeria has had with Ambazonia for over half a century, interconnectedness, the same language, and even if it's pidgin, whatever thing, and so on and so forth. Trade between Ambazonia and Nigeria increased and even spilled over into French Cameroon. For those of you who were there in the 70s and the 80s, you remember, French Cameroon adopted a policy of seizing and destroying Nigerian products. They will come to Bamenda market, go to Tiko market, go to Koma market, Martha, and so on, seize those Nigerian products and destroy them. Because they saw Nigeria now as a rival. And Nigeria industrialization meant that Cameroon's infant industry controlled by France was never going to prosper at all. So you have that kind of conflict between those two countries. Each one saying the best way is to seize Ambazonia for economic reasons, for religious reasons. What of ethnic reason? Now, even our people themselves, they do make this strategic mistake. You would find the people of Fako who call themselves, they say they are the Sawa people, isn't it? That comforts French Cameroon, which says, aha, you see, we told you. These are our ethnic people, and therefore have a right to claim that territory. You go across also, you go to Kupe Maneguba, there are people who said, oh, they are Mbo people. In other words, across the border. And that comforts French Cameroon. That says, aha, we see, we told you. This is our people. So we need to get the territory. Then you go up to Libelem, where some people say, oh, no, we have the same thing with Changtu and all of that, and so on and so forth. And then you go up. You find the same thing with the people around Santander, who are claiming Ngembu, what is that place in the middle place in French Cameroon? And then the worst one is, you go up there, you find the Basso people who claim that the Bamon people are their brothers. Well, if you claim they are brothers, then there's a need for the brothers to come together. And you don't just put the brothers together, you create the territories, put them together as well. And then you go along the border on the other side, you find that the people, even Menchum, you're going to pull Ndonga Mantu and all of those people, Wimbom people, who also say they are across the border into Nigeria. Oh, Nigeria is fine. I mean, if they're across the border, they're fine. They are part of our people. We need to get them. Then you come down now to Manyu, the Ejagan people, who say, oh, our brothers and sisters with the Calabar people. Well, if you're brothers and sisters Calabar people, following Putin's theory, then of course Nigeria will have to claim. So you have an ambassador, interestingly here, claimed by these two countries on its borders, and each of them on the basis of what? Ethnicity. On the basis of ethnicity. They are claiming, have it. That we ourselves will compound all of that by proclaiming that, oh, we are part of French Cameroon. I'm yet to hear any person in Douala say that they are part of the Bakori people. It's the other way around. The Bakori say they are part of the Sawa people. And the sourness only ends there. It does not extend down to Kribi. Why does it not extend down to Kribi? It's only moving forward, coming this way, go to Indian. Why? And one of the arguments which they made during the Bakassi case, they claimed was that, oh, all the people, the Bakori, Pura, Indian people, are part of all Sawa people, and therefore part of French Cameroon, and therefore part of that territory. You have that. This is something which is very, very dangerous for our nation, because it gives these two countries, following the Putin theory, the right to grab Ambazonia. And we don't be surprised. They'll do exactly like Putin. Split it into two and say, well, we are just taking just this Sawa area here and taking this Mbo area and taking of this area that are the same with Bui, that are the same with the Fumban people. Well, you Nigeria can take the other side, you know, the Wimbom people coming down to Ejagampo, you can take that. We cease to exist. We don't exist anymore. So some of these things we want to bandy, we throw around, and so we must be very, very extremely careful about them. Now, the other thing, two things more I just want to point out. The issue of liberal democracy. Now, when Ambazonia federated with French Cameroon, one thing which France was hoping for, and all of you who have read the declassified documents, you will see that as early as 1963, 64, 65, the French were really very, very disturbed that the rate of assimilation which they had hoped hadn't taken place, because they had hoped that as soon as what they call this small minority join French Cameroon, then overnight will become part of French Cameroon, will be assimilated, speaking French, absorb everything French. But it didn't happen. Instead, informed analysts, political scientists, especially those from the United States of America, pointed out, they came to look at the place, study the two communities, French Cameroon and Ambazonian community. Their conclusion was simple. Ambazonia has a very democratic culture, has a very liberal culture. It has very strong institutions and respect for institutions. And its people were very, very free. And the conclusion was that the opposite obtained in French Cameroon. And that therefore, what is likely going to happen instead of French Cameroon influencing what they call Anglophone Cameroon, the reverse would likely happen. That Anglophone Cameroon would influence Francophone Cameroon, which was true. Because thinking heads in Francophone Cameroon, Professor Chunjang, the guy who was one of the prolific writers in French Cameroon, or no, I just slipped my mind now, you know, they studied the two, and they came to a conclusion that for the salvation of French Cameroon, they must better adopt the system that exists in what they used to call West Cameroon. That was their conclusion. That was their conclusion. And many of them said so openly, said so. So because of that, the French took fright. They were very much afraid. This small little minority, they say was a small minority, at that time they said were just 25% or 20% of the population. How come it's going to influence it? These are part of the considerations that led to 72 absorption of Anglophone Cameroon, as it were, to become French, and they hope that they accelerate. And you all remember, Biya himself confessed that I hope they are going to do that, but they failed. Of course, they're bound to fail because we have a culture of strong institutions. We have a culture of democracy. We have a culture of respect for law and order. We don't respect what you call as a president, or because he gives them order on instruction. No, we expect an institution. We expect a constitution. You know, and that's why our police never had guns. Never had. But a policeman, when he appears in any environment, everybody, you knew that there was the law here. That was what it was in those days. The law is here. You respect that. Not so in French Cameroon. So French Cameroon rejected, through France, our liberal democracy, espousing things like human rights. You know, they couldn't understand. Strong institutions. They couldn't understand. Freedom of speech. When Paul Biya was making the newspapers, they were publishing things which in French Cameroon was subversive heresy. How do you publish that kind of a thing? You publish that the prime minister has stolen a carpet, you go and return it, those kind of a thing. Who are you? The prime minister, Joa, goes to court to face an ordinary citizen because he sued him. How can that ever happen? So when people like Senze and Dinka doing the Dogmo trial in Yaoundé, I was still a student there. And in court, their submission, you know, French Cameroon, if you know how you operate in that court, just talk, nothing. So they said, no. All this is all hearsay. The president of your republic, whom you say gave all this order, was saying this. He's not dead. He should appear in court and give evidence and to be examined and cross-examined. Oh my goodness, that was heresy. You mean the president in the trial of Makiza, they will come and stand here to be cross-examined by who? Which lawyer? Who are you? But that shows you, it translates the kind of mental attitude, the way we look at things and the way they look at things. And they rejected that liberal democracy. And that rejection led to the absorption in 72 of our territory and our people. In the same way, the rejection of liberal democracy espoused by Ukraine has led to the war, which you find happening there. So in the face of all of this, that all of this is happening, what therefore would I propose for Ambazonia? People have asked me. Because Ambazonia is not going to change its size overnight. It will never change its size. Ambazonia is population, well, we keep on increasing, but there's no way we'll attain 100 million people, you know, not in our lifetime, not in the next distance. And how do you remove this perpetual threat they're hanging over our head? You just need some crazy person to come in Nigeria or French Cameroon, damn the consequence like Putin has done, march in the army, and that is it. Right? The world will stop just watching, just like they're doing in Ukraine. And that's how this world is. Nobody will lift a finger. So does it mean that all these our efforts fighting for independence will come to naught? You achieve independence tomorrow and next day somebody just, overruns the whole of Ambazina and takes it. I'm saying there's a way out. There is a way out. Now, it is said that if you're a small animal and you're living by a baboon or a gorilla, you must be extremely careful. Because one day, the gorilla or the baboon will come after you. We live in a world where a lot is being talked about international politics, or real politics, as some would say. It follows that a small country must always be on the lookout, always be on the lookout. If it finds itself sandwiched as we are between two neighbors with covetous designs over the territory. Nigeria covets Ambazina. You have no doubt about that. French Cameroon covets Nigeria. It is not fighting there just for pleasure. It wants to grab Ambazonia as it's part of its territory. That's what they are fighting for. So always a small country which is finding itself in that kind of a situation must always be very, very careful. And in such a situation, it's not peculiar to Ambazonia. In other parts of the world, we've had this kind of a situation. Now, what the international system has sometimes found it necessary to do in the interest of human rights and the interest of peace and security, world peace and security, is to support the small state's legitimate and legal claim to sovereign independence, and has gone a step further to recognize that country's political independence and territorial integrity in terms of international law by guaranteeing the independence and territorial integrity permanently under international law of that small country, using the international law institution that is known as neutralization. I must say, it has nothing to do with French Cameroon talking about il faut le neutraliser, which means you should assassinate the person. No, no. We are talking of an international law institution of neutralization. And there are some outstanding examples of neutralization, historical examples of neutralized states. I can just name you 3 or 4. Switzerland, for example, Laos, for example, Belgium, for example, Australia, for example. These have all been neutralized states. The reason why you find nowadays Austria and Belgium escape from neutralization is because, first, the trauma of the fact that they were invaded by Hitler and their country was taken off. It was very traumatic for them. If you go to Holland, you see some of the sites and things. It's very, they were very shocked for a small country that, frankly, offended nobody. You know, if you know the Netherlands, a very small country, very small. Yeah, and yet, Hitler just walked over it within a matter of hours. People were so traumatized that they said, no, we will not let this happen again. After the war, they said, no, look, please, we want to be neutralized, which means that we want the big powers to guarantee our independence and our security, which the big powers did. So they joined, and that's why they joined, Belgium joined NATO, and Austria, which was the first country Hitler grabbed, claiming that Hitler did exactly the same thing which Hitler did. They claimed that it was reunification. That's what Hitler said, it was reunification. So marching his troops took over Austria. And so, well, the two countries are German-speaking, they have been reunified throughout sometime distant past, maybe in antiquity, when Jesus was still alive. Maybe they were all one country at that time. So they need to come back now as one country. So Austria became part of the German Empire under Hitler. But fortunately for them, after liberation, Austria said, no, we don't want to face this whole thing again. It might happen. You don't want some crazy fellow. Please, we want neutralization. And it became neutralized. And the independence has been guaranteed, their security is guaranteed as part of NATO. If you attack Australia or Belgium, in fact, as you all know, the NATO headquarters is in Belgium, you know. So they're strictly no longer neutralized states, so to speak. Switzerland itself still likes to regard itself as a neutral state. But many of the things it does actually shows that it is partisan in many, many respects. But as people say, this is, as a sovereign independent state, you are free to choose the path you want to choose. So what I'm saying is, for a small country in this kind of a situation in the world, you cannot, especially sandwich between these two countries that have ambitions to really annihilate you. The institution which you must go for is the institution of neutralization. And that means that Ambazonia would have to get the big powers, or at least the United States of America and Great Britain and other powers, guaranteeing the independence and territorial integrity of Ambazonia for perpetuity. That's a permanent neutralization. And that way, you can go to bed and sleep well without fearing that by the time you get up, Nigerian troops or French Cameroon troops who are already there would already be back trying to grab the territory. So that is my solution for Ambazonia, neutralization. And that what this means is that the post-independence and liberation Ambazonia would have to be very, very careful in crafting its external policy. We will need to have a Nigerian policy. You have to articulate it. And for Ambazonians who are listening to me now, we don't have to wait until that day comes. You must start thinking about it. What would that Nigerian foreign policy, what would it look like? How would it be? We must have to think about that. We must also have to start thinking about French Cameroon policy. How do we deal with them? How do we handle them? What will be our attitude towards them? I know in discussing sometime with some of comrades, somebody said, what policy? We'll just build a Trump wall. We'll build a Trump wall. This people will never come back into our territory. But if that's a policy Ambazona settled for, why not? Trump wall, why not? That will not be the first. The Jews have built their own wall there to keep off the Palestinians, you know? So, but it's a policy we have to think about and craft it with information that we have and the objective we want to attain. And our Nigerian policy, of course, must have to focus on the point that we've had a connection with Nigeria. And our connection with Nigeria was essentially with the Southern Nigeria. In other words, the Yoruba, the Igbos, and the Ibibio. This is the South, all of Southern Nigeria. And we may want to emphasize a policy that brings back all these connections with them. And then, something we often tend to forget, we must frame an Equatoguinean policy. That policy would need to revive historical linkages with what we used to call those days Fernando Po. You remember that the first stopping point when the whites were coming in founding Victoria, in founding Bimbia, in founding Rio del Rey in Indian there, the first stop was often Fernando Po. And Alfred Seca and his people were first in Fernando Po before coming and founding Victoria. Those missionaries first came to Fernando Po and then founding Bimbia. The English governor who was in Fernando Po, we had jurisdiction from Bimbia right up to Rio de Rey in the Bakassi area. So we need to craft a policy, an Equatoguinean policy, taking into account all of that, but also taking into account the fact that we have to share territorial waters with Fernando Po, with Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, under the law of the sea. the littoral states can claim up to 12 nautical miles. But if you look at the island of Malabo and look at our coast, neither of us can claim 12 nautical miles, nor Equatorial Guinea claiming 12 nautical miles, because the distance between Victoria, for example, the nearest point, and Equatorial Guinea is so short. People have spoken about how many? Is it 20? Yeah, just 20 miles. It's very short, 20 miles. So which means you can't claim that 12. They cannot claim that 12. Both of you have to agree. Okay, it's a question of equity. You claim 10-10. That is it. And you draw the line there. You know, we don't want to start embarrassing and start quarreling about where the line should be and going to war like other countries are going fighting and so on. We don't want that to happen. We've had enough war. By the end, we are free. We would have had enough war, lost enough people. So we can craft a policy that will take care of that, and also take care of the shipping or joint patrolling of the sea lanes between Fernando Po and us. I don't know why I keep on talking about Fernando Po, sorry. Equatorial Guinea and us, you know, to monitor those sea lanes as ships traffic pass through and so on, control. So we don't have contraband, we don't have to come on nuclear waste to dump there and all of those kind of things and so on and so forth. And also fishing. And more importantly, Ambazonia will have to do what we call in the law of the sea shelf claims, which depends upon the continental shelf. The continental shelf, which is below the sea, deep down below the sea. And each country is entitled to claim a 200 nautical miles continental shelf. But of course, since Equatorial Guinea is facing oil, we cannot claim 100 nautical miles. But Equatorial Guinea is very lucky, because on the other side, it can claim, and it has those little islands called Anabom and all of that, you know, so they can claim and go that way. But they would not have exhausted the continental shelf, which means that we have the right on the other side of Equatorial Guinea to claim a continental shelf. All the more so as if you look at where Equatorial Guinea is, and you look at where all the Equatoguinean islands are, those 3 islands, they are simply a projection of the Amazonian volcanic line, all the way from the Oku Massif, right down, past the BLM come right down to Mount Fako, going down to the sea. It's amazing. So if you look at it, take a map, it's a straight line from all those islands, you know, Fernando Po go right up, straight line. So that's simply a projection. Yeah. Look at it there. It's a straight line, straight line. So Equatorial Guinea will claim 200 nautical miles, but it will not exhaust the continental shelf, because the continental shelf come right down this way. We will be entitled also to claim a part of the continental shelf. This is very, very important. But of course, I don't want to start a big lecture now on the law of the sea. But I mention these things because these are things which Ambazonia need to start thinking about right now. They are not things we start thinking about only the day we get to Biya. When we get to Biya, there'll be so many. This map even shows it clearly. You see those. Look at all those. Look at that map. You will see there Fernando Po there, Equatorial Guinea, sorry, Malabo, all those islands straight from Biya Mountain, Oku Massif, come right down. They're all part of the projection of, if you like. If we're sensible in those days, we would have claimed all those things way back in 59-60 as part of our territory, and nobody will argue. They'll say, yes, it's part of it. It's a projection of our mountain and so on. But of course, we lost that opportunity. We cannot go back to that. And so all we can do now is to work out a policy in which we work together with Equatorial Guinea and so on. So we don't have any problem with our sea area there and so on and so forth. So I thought I should mention that, because that becomes very, very important, the future of Ambazonia, and especially our intellectuals, our lawyers, our geographers, our historians. I think they have been asleep. Please wake up. Geographers, wake up. Historians, wake up. Lawyers, wake up. We have a lot of work to do. We have to stabilize all of this when we get to where, but work has to start now. I've been very long, but I want to thank you very much for being so patient with all of this. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Prof. I think you've held us spellbound, as usual, with your very, very in-depth scholastic lectures. This is this is what Harvard would give you, or Oxford would give you, or Cambridge or something in one of those graduate courses. Thank you so much.
On Amazonia, Ambazonology.
Exactly.
Ambazonology. Take that as a discipline. We will have to institute.
Yes, yes. Secretariat, I don't know if you have something to.
Yeah, do we have time for questions for Prof? I know we're a minute over, but
yes, I know, because Prof we had to give Prof the extra 15 minutes for when he came in from other engagement. But Prof, I would appeal to our other guests who are in, attorneys Pride Njingwan and attorney Innocent Aneneba, to just please give us the opportunity to take 2 or 3 questions only for Prof. We'll just take the first 2 or 3. If there's anybody who wants to ask Prof anything after this rich lecture, so we have
Charles Agbo.
Yes, we have Charles Agbo. Comrade Charles, unmute yourself and ask Prof your question.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Professor Anyangwe, for the presentation. Now, considering the fact that fossil fuels will be phased out very soon, I mean, in the UK here, no one will be able to drive a petrol or diesel car in the streets here in 2030, 8 years' time. And because of the war in Ukraine, that has been brought forward. Lots of countries are trying to phase out oil. And considering the fact that we were annexed because of the oil. So what impact will this have on the struggle? Because we will be valueless in front of La Republique, I think. So yeah, I just want to see what do you think about the impact on the struggle?
No,
Prof, we'll take one more question, and then you can answer in a closer, please. Dr. Edmond.
Yeah, Prof, I just wanted to, I mean, a little bit different from Charles. Thank you very much. The issue of natural gas is still there for the Europeans to heat their homes, which is not going to go away. And one of the areas where you probably might have needed a little bit more clarification as well is the amount of natural gas we have now that Russia is beginning to weaponize gas, turn off the taps. The Europeans are probably more likely going to find out, forage wherever they may get to replace whatever Russian gas they are now, that they may eventually have to, that they will lose or maybe limit. So maybe that's one area that I would have loved a little bit of touch on. But lastly, the important thing is there was a world before 9/11 and there was a world after 9/11. I listened to a commentator here, the commentators here in the United States, they are looking at this even being bigger than 9/11. And they have a right, the war in Ukraine is bigger than 9/11 in terms of the world shift. And I'm like, as an Ambazonians who are struggling for liberation, what can we have to show some people some profit. You know, what is it that we Ambazonians are going to be able to tell the West and say, guys, what should we do? What are the actionable items that we Ambazonians should be taking to be able to align the Western interests with our interests in order to have them support us? So that's what I would, those are my a few questions.
The last question from Comrade Bai. The last question from Comrade Bai, and that's it.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon after everybody, and once more it's a pleasure having Prof. Let me see if I can put on my
camera.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I just want to appreciate, as usual, what the lessons we are continuing to learn from Prof. My question goes like this, because he mentioned the ongoing crisis between Russia and Ukraine. And he has been writing a lot about this on our forums. Now, nobody is really happy when another state is invaded. But listening to him, to you, Prof, I hear you invoke the principle of neutrality. And you did propose that if in future Ambazonia is independent, we would like to follow that principle of neutrality between the two giants that lies on our right and on our left, east and west, which is a very laudable principle. Now, my question is, if Ukraine had respected the international rules, norms, and accords that were put in place between Russia and NATO, would they have put themselves in the embarrassment in which they are today? Because we understand that there were some arrangements that Ukraine will not join NATO or the West. And this will also forbid Russia from any expansion into Ukraine. If they had respected this principle of neutrality, would this war have occurred? Thank you.
Okay, quite a mouthful. Let me start by taking Charles' question. Yeah, you know, sometimes countries do make those predictions. The UK, I hope they succeed. But I don't believe that theory that fossil oil would vanish like that. Even if it vanished in the UK, it will not vanish in Europe, it will not vanish in the rest of the world. So it will still maintain most of its relevance, you know. If that were so, you would have seen the UK would have been closing the North Sea oil, not bother about it. But it still does. So I don't think that's even a very credible position. We had the same thing when it came to electric cars. We were told so many years ago that oil, when Arabs did what they did in the 70s, you remember, the 70s. Oh, this oil will soon be out and all this and so on, while electric cars. We are still strong with electric cars today. So no, I don't think that it's not as simple as that. The world doesn't just change overnight like that. So I won't give much credence to that. So Ambazonia continues to be very, very relevant. And I'll link this up what Edmond, the question asked. And oil will still remain a very important equation, whether in Africa or in the Middle East or even in Russia itself or China. It's not going to disappear tomorrow. It won't be. The issue of gas becomes more important. There was, when the ICJ was presiding over the Bakassi case, this gas issue was an important thing that came up. And one of the arguments was that the way the boundary should be drawn should be taken into account, should take into account the award of contracts for oil and gas in that area. Of course, the ICJ rejected that. That cannot just be like that. And the map which they produced, which to me, and when I saw it, I said, wow, I had never seen that map. And I thought I had it here. I can't find it, but when I find it, Edmond, I'll send it to you. We are sitting in Bakassi there in one of the areas which has arguably, if not one of the largest gas deposits in the world, but also perhaps in Africa. Spread all over that place. Part of it is under Nigerian sovereignty, part of it is under Equatorial Guinean sovereignty, and part of it is under Ambazonian sovereignty. It is not for nothing that you have the Russians, you have the British themselves, you have all these countries very, very active in the Bakassi area there and off the coast, all of that. There is. And for us, that will be a very, very important source of not just of revenue, to uplift our people as well. So every home, I hope our engineers are listening, that every home in Ambazonia should be able to turn on gas and have their homes and so on. So there's a large quantity. Well, I don't have the figures with me now, but it is large. I was myself taken aback when I saw it. I said, oh my goodness, we don't know. Many of these things, because again, African leadership is so stupid, the Africans themselves don't even know what they have. The white man, of course, has to come and do the research and then tell you, you have this and so on. What he doesn't want to tell you, he doesn't tell you, and you remain ignorant. I just hope that in the future, Ambazonia will not fall prey to all these common African mistakes. They don't even know what they have in their various countries, and worse, they don't even know how to use it. So no, I'm very comfortable about that. We have a lot of gas. We have which we can use, and of course, our first priority will be to satisfy our home market, our people. And then the surplus would be for extra income for sale. That's what yeah. Is there any aspect of Edmund's question which I've missed? I think there's something you asked which I'm missing.
Yeah, Prof.
Yes, I was just asking the things like aligning Western interests versus with Ambazonian interests. What are the concrete things Ambazonians should be doing?
Oh,
now,
yes, yes,
I thought
so.
Seize the moment.
Yes. I thought. Remember that the West is always out of what they call in pursuit of its own interests. Interests, they're defined in economic terms, defined in strategic terms, which means actually security terms. And in some instances, they add the cultural element. The French will add the cultural element. At one time, the English were very particular about the cultural element, but I don't think that's too very hot. Although, time and again, it does come up. That way, you have the Commonwealth anyway, and so on. And so for us, we have Ambazonia has two trump cards. Well, say trump card, I mean, I have two elements which they can always show any country that's interested. The economic aspect, not just this gas, which is there, a lot of it. You don't find that in many countries in Africa. Some African countries don't even have, on the oil, but also the fact that in terms of minerals deposit, Ambazonia is still a virgin country. And it's a virgin country because it has never been in the interest of the colonizer to try to make us understand that we're a wealthy country. And so to hide all of those things, we don't know. But there are indications clearly that we have gold, we have coltan, which is a very valuable thing, and other, some speak of bauxite, you know. But I would be more comfortable to have our own people to ascertain all of these things than to depend, for example, on external powers who will come and, of course, tell you what they want to tell you and hide what they want to hide. So on that basis, on economic basis, we agreed on that. We have a lot to tell them. But there are concerns about security also. Like I pointed out, we are strategically located. And the comparison I'll make in terms of strategic location strategy is Djibouti. For those of you, who are geography savvy, if you look at the African map, look where Djibouti is. Djibouti is not even up to the size of Fako. And the population is even about that same, if not less, you know. Do you know that in Djibouti alone, there are 8 powers that have military bases there? 8. Most of them just about a kilometer or so from each other. Why is there such a rush to have all those that presence? When I talk of base, I'm talking of very sophisticated bases The Americans have, the French have, the British have, the Germans have. Recently, I think the Russians and the Chinese have been trying to butt in their way to get there too and have all of those things. So why? If you look at where Djibouti is located, it is facing the Gulf of Aden. And therefore, controlling a lot of the sea lanes. When you leave the Mediterranean, you pass through Egypt, the Suez Canal, you have to come down and go down there before you get onto the Indian Ocean. You pass through there. So with those powers strategically located there, they oversee. You may ask, why is it that they didn't go to Somalia, which has a longer coast and is actually facing the Indian Ocean there? Why didn't they go there? Economically, it's cost-effective being in Djibouti to begin with. It's a small place, you know, so the long Somalian coast, which will actually demand a lot of investment and all of that. And the same argument applies for us. We are, of course, bigger than Djibouti is, but we offer exactly the same kind of facilities for the presence of AFRICOM to oversee the American presence, the British presence, whoever presence in the Gulf of Guinea. The Gulf of Guinea, if you just find out, it controls a lot of trade, ships passing to and fro there, passing through and fro, just like you have in Djibouti. So strategically, therefore, we fall exactly on the same kind of category. They will not go to Nigeria, which has a longer coastline. Of course, Nigeria is much more bigger. You think that you will go there. They will not go there. It's not cost effective to go there, you know. We are much more smaller, coastline much more smaller, but yet provide an excellent facility. They will not go to French Cameroon. French Cameroon hasn't got the kind of sea facilities we have. They don't have they have no equivalent to Mano Bay. They have no equivalent to deep sea port. They don't have. They've been struggling there with having the Kribi there, but Kribi is silting, you know. So they don't have. So you go down further south, they don't. So we are the only ones. So I think on that two levels, we would meet any foreign power. We tell them, meet them and say, okay, this is what we have, this is what we have. And that should satisfy their concern about national interest, which means economic interest, means security interest, sometimes cultural interest.
So
now let me take a bias.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
With Prof's permission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one thing, if I can jump in one thing, because in fact it came up earlier this year in the town hall, and earlier we did. I think I was the one who did make the statement then regarding our issue that it was almost impossible because the interest of the U.S., economic interest of U.S., England, and Russia were united because of oil and gas in the Etienne.
Yes.
And so we were going to have difficulties along that front. But you know, sometimes luck blesses you.
Indeed.
And less than 6 months ago here, I said, if anybody is talking about oil and gas, they have that one lockdown. You know, Russia has 37%, US has 27%, England has somewhere about 27%. They are happy.
Yes.
But
yes.
Right now, Luke Oil, which is the main Russian giant, has been bad. But going back to the gas, the wet gas is the first thing that is going to come out of Etinde. And if literally it is negotiations, it's a question of negotiations, not technology that is holding the extraction of the gas right now.
Yeah.
Luke Oil was supposed to do the liquefied natural gas part. And so if we are talking about windows of opportunity, this is a good chance for us to now go to Europeans and say, listen, if this thing were under our control, you can have all this liquefied natural gas to replace the Russian gas. Yep. You are rather giving this large deposit of gas now to the Russians. And that puts you more under Russian control, under Russian indebtedness for gas. Because right now, Western Europe is looking at where they are going to get natural gas for next winter.
Yes.
And we have to really seize this opportunity. it is up in the air. The contracts literally have not been finalized. The long-term deals where if Europe comes in, the US comes in and says, listen, this thing can be broken apart. And we say, if this is under our control, you guys we can talk about this liquefied natural gas, but it cannot go to Russia. And, you know, something that looked impossible 3 months ago has been handed to us on a plate. We just have to learn how to chew it.
Excellent.
Thank
That's why my appeal is for our competitors who are savvy in these domains. You know, I'm sure there are a lot of our people who are in this field of gas and oil engineering and so on and so forth. They should lead us in all of this. So don't go on groping in the dark, as it were. You know, yes, we have a lot of potential. We have, small as we are, small, but we just have to take advantage of all of these things and present them. You know, if we're waiting for the outside world to do that, they will never present us those things. You expect Britain to come and tell you, or Russia, whatever, oh, you have so much gas here. No, they wouldn't do that. They won't. It's us who have to do those things, that kind of initial work. So
thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. I know that there are some hands that would like to talk, but we'll just advise that maybe after all the guests have come, we'll open it back.
Yes, no, we can continue the conversation after all the other comrades have made their own presentations. That's fine. I'll still be here.
Thank you, Prof. Before you go in, we have something very. Somebody sent in a question to you. That they are watching us on Facebook, so obviously they cannot ask you directly, but they bring up the issue of sabotage as a motivating strategy. There is one of the political groups, Southern Cameroons, activist political groups, that are already trying to initiate a move towards Russia at this time. And they're asking, will it not be a turnoff to the West? This group, from what they say, had also taken an opportunity to try to approach the Biafra group. And we know how that went and what effect it had on the Nigerian government. And their question is, isn't this going to sabotage our relationships or the opportunities we have with the West, given the presentation you've done today? Is it something to be taken seriously or not? Or is it
when
just...
When you go to bed, you put the light off.
Who is that? Go ahead, Prof.
Okay. Yeah, let me first start with a biased question. He asked a question before. Remember, he asked me about...
Ukraine, yes.
Yeah, about Ukraine.
Neutrality, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, NATO, yes.
Yeah, I've heard that story. There was some agreement between Russia and NATO countries that Ukraine will not do blah, 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 blah stuff. First, I've not seen that agreement. Some of these things, people just say them. When I did ask somebody, could I have the benefit of seeing the agreement? He could not produce the agreement. But even if it existed, any agreement which you make over a country, you are treating the country then as a vassal state, which you can negotiate, do everything over it, and that country is not bound by such agreements. In any event, the litmus test is, if Russia has a problem with NATO, well, you attack NATO. Why do you attack a country just because you perceive that it is weak? If the Ukraine were a stronger country, would Russia dare to attack it? It wouldn't. So that one, people advancing to me, is a red herring, is an excuse for attacking a country that has no basis at all in law or even in any case. If you accept that Ukraine is a sovereign, independent country, it would chart its own course, whatever that course might be, and whatever consequence that country might want to take. So I don't think that is persuasive. So, okay, I come to this thing about, you say some group that wants to contact Russia. I'm not too sure what they want to contact Russia for. Let me say two things. The first thing is that sometimes when people try to engage initiatives, it's always good for them to try to make a background check. Contacting Russia is nothing new. Way back in 2019 or 20, I can't remember a specific date. I think it was when there was supposed to be some meeting at the UN Security Council, and word went around that they're likely to discuss our issue at that council meeting. Either I was at Ariel meeting or immediately before. I was one of those who took the initiative to write a letter which was sent to both Russia as a power in the Security Council veto power, and even to Turkey, another country that has signed a military pact with Cameroon. What was this all about? To explain to Russia and to Turkey that our issue is a decolonization issue. And I took the trouble to explain to them what happened at the UN in 1961. They started from 59, when I pleaded to the UN even to postpone the plebiscite to give us breathing space, presented the Manfred, the resolution of the Manfred, all of that was explained to Russians. And I drew parallel with Russia at that time, Soviet Union at that time, policy of supporting people fighting for self-determination. The same thing too with Turkey, and I drew parallel with what their own Atatürk did for Turkey and so on. The idea was when they go down to this UN assembly, they want to vote, they'll make an informed vote. Of course, we never had any response from the Russians, and I'm not sure it had the desired effect, because the vote just fizzled out, and I think it was China, I mean, to some extent Russia, who just stood up and said, well, this, yeah, it may have been, but this is an internal issue, full stop, that was it. But at that time, I did not know at that time that way back in 2015, the Russians had already concluded a military pact with Cameroon. And that took my mind back when I got to know that. I remember the Russian ambassador at Yaoundé saying, actually, when this thing blew up in 2017 or 18, saying, well, no, this is an internal issue, and that they will never support anything that will lead to a breakup of Cameroon's territorial integrity. And I don't think that Russian position has changed up to today. That's what the Russians stand for that so-called one Cameroon, even though taking pains to show that, no, we have nothing to do with Cameroon. And they've not been able to explain how an English-speaking territory and country will be part of a French-speaking country's territorial integrity. Nobody has been able to explain that. So I think it is a wasted effort trying to go to the Russians at this particular point in time. And it is misconceived because, like I said, what Russia is today is not what the Soviet Union was yesterday. Neither is China. It's like the African leader rushed to China because China was dangling some yuans in front of them, and all in line of like school children to collect the money from China. When they got home, they realized that this whole thing was a bait by China. When China started impounding on their property, their sovereign estates, then they started complaining. Russia is coming, China is coming, China is doing this and so on. But they went there with their eyes open. And this is exactly what is going to happen here, where they're rushing now to go to Russia in the hope that Russia is going to give them no what protection or whatsoever. Russia is too involved with Ukraine and has lost significant number of the military and weapons there for them to get any involved in any adventure in especially Africa. For what? Secondly, Russia has an impending issue with China, territorial issues, and with Japan. We don't know any which time those things might blow up any time for all we know. So Russia is not there to do charity. To say, okay, we're going to send boots on the ground to help you. You know, they won't. As French Cameroon is dreaming, it would never happen. Or that they will send in armaments. Of course they can, to get rid of some old World War armaments. They might send them to you, whatever thing it is. But the very idea that they will send boots on the ground to protect you of course, is wishful thinking. Of course, they might send their mercenary outfits, which is called Wagner, to come and assist you. But that will be taking a tremendous risk because Wagner is already in the Central African Republic. It is in Mali. And for them to set foot in Cameroon, that would demand a lot of effort, a lot of effort. I don't see that happening. But of course, every country is allowed to dream whatever it wants to dream. So Russia today is just as imperialistic as we say the Western country used to condemn yesterday. So the anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism of the Soviet Union is not the same thing we hear today. It will not happen. So I will not think it would be wise for them to try to go and try to get any, I don't know exactly what they are trying to get from Russia, which you will never get. And finally, you cannot at this particular time, even if they want to do, the timing is absolutely wrong. At a time when Russia is facing a very, very bad press, the whole of the Western world is against Russia. Even China has not been able to muster the courage, enough courage to come out openly and say it's backing Russia. Everybody is being very cautious. And at a time when it is very, very clear that Putin will have to end up in the ICC at some point, you know? So you're going to receive to Russia what? Russia will give you money? Will give you what? You think Russia will come and liberate the Southern Cameroons by what means? By putting boots on the ground to kick you against French Cameroon against the French? No, that, and I think his calculation is not correct. And I will not advise that. I think it's wrong.
But the question they had was it, do you think it's a sabotage ploy? That was their question, by to turn the West against us.
No. If you sabotage, it can only be sabotage of their own effort. I don't think that group, whatever group that is, that can purport to speak for the whole of Amazonia. I don't think so. And they cannot be going there in the name of Amazonia. Who mandated them? What leverage have they got? You know, see, Russia cannot give to Africans what it cannot even give to its own people. What? This is so clear. How can people not see this so clearly? Go to what they used to call the Siberia in Russia. Up to today, go and see how the people are suffering under worse conditions than in Africa. People who go to Russia, they hop to Moscow and Stalingrad and one of those towns, and they conclude that's all of Russia. No, that's a very small part. The other part is as backward as anything. Russia has not done anything for them. So why would they come and do something for Africa? No. So if it is sabotage, they can only sabotage themselves. I don't understand. In any case, nobody is going to take them serious, and I don't think Russia will even take them serious in that respect. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. There were some hands up. I don't know if they are still here who had other questions for you before we took the other guests. If anybody has any more questions for Prof, you can raise your hand and then unmute yourself. I don't know if Comrade Sikot is in here, Prof. He, at the last town. Comrade Sikot, are you in here? Are you still here? I think he must have left us. Okay, a hand has come up. Okay, Comrade Charles, go ahead. Ask Prof your question.
Yeah, hi, Prof. It's just a follow-up from what I said earlier. Don't you think that we have to be strategic when it comes to this energy thing that we're talking about? Because the West, and even here in the UK, they pay people a lot of money just to look ahead. And what I'm saying about this petroleum being phased out is one of those schemes. The United States cannot give Europe its strategic reserve. It removes part of the strategic reserve to give Europe because of this crisis. That is because they've seen the future, that they will not need it anymore. So, and if the West, even here, because even our gas boilers in our homes will be phased out, we're not going to use gas boiler anymore in the next few years, very near future, I mean, 3 to 4 years time. So if these Western countries phase out fossil fuels, the demand is going to drop. The price is going to follow. And most of these companies, you will see from this year or next year, you see their appetite for looking for more fuels is also dropping because they have signed agreements to reduce their emissions. I'm talking about independent companies. So we have, don't you think we have to be strategic as well to see that this is not going to, I mean, the value of this thing, the black gold or whatever, because it's going to drop.
Yes,
and we
of
might
course.
get our freedom because of that. Thank you.
Yes, of course. I mean, every country has to be strategic. We have to be strategic. And that's why I invited all our thinking heads. You know, I call on the lawyers, because lawyers have to work in connection with engineers on this thing, specialists in these things, who are serving these things, to put our heads together and help in Amazonia. It has to be strategic. But of course, that strategy doesn't mean that you just sit at home and hear what is churned out from Europe and you build a strategy with that. And so, the British say that I want to face oil, so therefore, let's hands up and start crying. No. You have to do your own thinking. I do your own thing. And I said, I don't believe, even if Britain was to face out that, and you said 3 years, that is not going to happen. I can tell you that all of you will change within 3 years. Not that Britain, which I know. In any case, even if Britain did that, it doesn't mean the rest of the world will get rid of it. There's a vast chunk of the world, I mean, which we still need. Have you thought about how many million Chinese will still need that? Or Africans? Why are we pitching our distance with the British just because the British have said this or that and so on? I've given an example of when this same thing happened. There's nothing new. In the 70s, when the Middle Eastern countries turned the tap, you know, and all of Europe, I remember vividly, people were going using bicycles, some were going on foot. At that time, that was the news. That, oh no, we will not need that gas or petrol very soon. Electric cars are down the line. Some even said I'm going to use water to run cars, all of that and so on. Half a century who are still here talking about that whole thing. No, the world doesn't function like that you can turn it off and on like a tap. No. So to me, it is still going to, the world is still going to need the oil, and the world is still going to need the gas. Why do some countries like Britain say those kind of things? They say it so as not to tell the Arab countries that, look, you're making so much noise about the oil, we're not going to need it. So you might well then either dispose of it or reduce the price or whatever. That is a kind of, there is their own strategy as well. And we must not necessarily follow it. We must also think out our own strategy and build it around our own thinking and build it around our own perceptions, our own findings as well. And any event, why do we build our own strategy just because of what those countries will say? We must ask ourselves, what are Amazonia needs in terms of oil, in terms of gas? Do we look at 100% providing our people gas, 100% providing them with oil or whatever it is, and then say, okay, whatever left, then we may have to do sell. And the sell doesn't necessarily mean that you sell to Europe or to Britain. Of course, you're always talking about Britain. Britain is a small little tiny island compared to the rest of Europe. Not talk of Africa, you know. And as you're aware, Charles, that there has been a cartographic distortion of the African continent. The whole of Europe, you can put it in Zaire. You know that very well. I'm not saying anything new. So for them to bring out all these theories and so on and so forth is really, so we can still do trade and sell to other African countries that need it, or even the Chinese and so on. So yeah, we need to strategize, but our strategy does not have to turn around what those people are thinking. I will stop.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, Prof, let me just come in first. It's not only Britain. Britain hosted the climate change conference in Edinburgh. And this is commitment by all the nations, even China. They've committed themselves by reducing emissions. The US has invested a lot of money for renewables. The Biden administration I'm talking about, a lot of money on renewables. So what is going to happen, I can assure you that, I can tell you that with almost certainty, that in the next 2 to 3 years, the demand for fossil fuel is going to drop dramatically. Even the Middle East, we're talking about Dubai, they've changed their economic model. They're investing on different things now.
Yeah, you change your own as well. You change your own as well. Do what? But what I'm saying is that time span of 2 or 3 years, it's not going to happen. Is it true that I've been talking about climate change? Even in the time of Obama, Biden was there. They're talking about these same things. There are a lot of interest involved, not just straightforward thing. And in any case, if you remove the European and the Russian, the American equation, that's not all of the world. The Chinese are not going to succumb to what the Russians want to, the Americans want to dictate, the Europeans want to dictate. Not now. You're talking how many billion people in China to take care of, you know? So that one is not going to happen tomorrow. I can tell you that. 10 years time, let me take it at 3 years, 5 years. We will still be talking about this whole thing that's still going around. It's not going to happen. But the point is that every country, this is the policy of the Americans. This is the policy which America is trying to ram down the throat of, which of course hasn't got unanimity in the United States anyway to begin with. The Chinese may make a show of going with it, but they know that they have their own interests, they have their own country, they have their own people to look after. They don't have the buy-in, say, of the North Koreans, for example. They don't have the buy-in of Africans. We're talking about population and huge land mass we're talking here. They don't have the buy-in of the Indians because they're talking about a massive population, no? So I think in this whole thing, we should just accept that they do their own thing. We do our own policy and thing, and not just say, oh, because they are saying so, therefore we should start reducing our own oil output or just say we don't have any resources. Yeah, that's all I just want to say. Thank you.
Okay, Prof, we have 2 hands up, Dr. Edmond and Infinity. But
yes.
Before we take the hands, I had called on Comrade SCITH, and he has joined us back. Because last town hall, you spoke about the jihadist move.
Yes.
Comrade SCITH had given, when Mr. Abdul Karim Ali was the guest 2 weeks ago, had spoken about the incursion. And I just wanted him to give you a little background, maybe you know, maybe you don't, of what's going on there, so you could also speak to that jihadist expansion. Yes. Comrade SCITH, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Are you in a position where you can turn on your camera? Because we lost you and Prof on camera.
Oh, what is happening?
Okay. If we can see.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Comrade SCITH, yes.
Yes, I just wanted you to give us that little background you gave us when Comrade Abdul Karim was here about what was going on in Donga Mantum and Menchum.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, sir, what I was trying to explain is that the situation in Donga and then it's also the same in Menchum, and it's it's also part of Ngoketunja.
Yes.
It's the fact that La République du Cameroon had centered themselves and most of their military barracks in the center, particularly, for example, in Kambe, and in other few spots like in Mbok Plain and in Ndu, where they have small spots. But the interior, the areas that are far into the villages, had all been occupied by these Fulani herdsmen, who are brought in mostly by, who have been brought in by some of the Fulanis that have been recruited by the Geo, particularly the Geo of Ndu, who is called Ibrahim something. They pay them and they give them arms. Then there is a man they call Tadido. He is the boss in charge of recruitment. He gets to Niger and the northern parts of Nigeria and recruits these Fulani herdsmen. And they work with those that are already there, these Borolos and and the Fulanis or Hausas, they work with some of them there to resettle these people. Now, they have been given the mandate to expand as much as possible, and any place where they claim from the Amber Boys, that is any place where the Amber camps were, which means they control that environment. If you take away from the Ambers, that region becomes your own. In the risk there is that the citizens, those that were initially there, having the land to graze or to do farmland, do not have a right over that property again. If you have to cultivate there, you take permission from these Fulanis or from these Borolos who now control that region. So most of the villagers do not have a way out, and they want to. They actually love the boys because our boys fight for them. But since the boys are weaker in this area, and since diaspora had not concentrated on this region, Menchum and Donga Mantum, they are ill-equipped. So the villagers tend to lean towards the military.
Yeah, what's happened? I lost you.
You lost me?
No, we're hearing you. I think Prof may have.
Carry on, we can hear you.
Okay. So they had lost because they have.
Can you just hold on for a second? Let's make sure that Prof is back.
Yeah,
Prof,
I'm following.
Okay,
Yeah,
continue.
Okay.
Carry on.
Okay. Yes. So since the villagers are in that position of being confused, they can't really lean on the restoration forces because they are weak and feeble. They tend to lean towards the military for survival. Unfortunately, they don't have that protection because these Fulanis have all the power that they need, because amongst them that have been brought in are spiritualists. Most of the spiritualists that give these traditional medicines, or whom they call Odeshi, to these military men, are these Fulanis that have been brought in. So they are stronger than the military. And so if the military has to go into the interior, they only do so with the Fulanis. And even the Ngarbo, the Ngarbo incident, had a lot of them were Fulanis inside that group of the military. Yes, they were there. This particular Tadido was there. These restoration forces have shot on him severally and had never succeeded to kill him. So they only have to do with other means which they are still not able to, but they are targeting. So that is virtually the problem we are having. And even along the road going to Menchum, along the road there, beside the roads are a lot of Fulani herdsmen. Even on the ring road, there are a lot of Fulani herdsmen. You will see them grazing, but they are not just grazing, they are spies, which means it becomes difficult for the boys to station around there for an ambush, because the bushes are controlled and protected by the Fulanis so that the military can have free passage.
Thank you, Comrade Sikot. Thank you for that. Since Prof had spoken about this jihadist expansion, especially as it pertains to our situation, I wanted you to give him the background. Prof, I don't know if you have something to respond before we take the two other hands.
Yeah, I'm just saying, actually, what Sikot is saying corroborates what I've been saying, and we need to put a narrative, especially to our Western partners.
Yeah,
here is a Christian Ambazonia that is sandwiched here, and this is a clear example of jihadist thrust when they go and recruit people from Nigeria, from Niger, and all over and so on, and they're occupying territory. This is something which the West must take very, very seriously. This is something America must take very, very seriously. And for us, it is no different from what Boko Haram is doing up there. So it is actually, on analysis, the way they're operating is the same like the Boko Haram. It's a branch of Boko Haram. And what they are trying to do is actually occupy territory. If they can grab all of Menchum, grab all of Donga Mantung, and grab all of Bui, then they link up with our brothers in French Cameroon, which have been by the army. And then, of course, the downward thrust will be quite easy. So the one way of getting this thing is this terrorist jihadist movement. That what is happening is a branch of the Boko Haram people who are now being recruited as mercenaries by French Cameroon. But of course, for French Cameroon, they may think that the people are interested in money, but for them, it's not a question of just money, because the Boko Haram people have a lot of money. For them, it's a question of two things: expansion of territory, and two, eventually religious conversion. Those are the things they are pursuing. You can see the same phenomenon happening in the southern Nigeria when all these headsmen, Hausa headsmen, go down. And of course, the government in Abuja, led by a Hausa Bororo man, just turns a blind eye. This is exactly the same thing. So our way to do is we must make a lot of noise about this with our Western partners. Any contact with the Americans, with the British, whatever, this is what we must bring up with a map to show them what is happening.
Thank you. Thank you. There are proofs that the people are moving with guns, because when Fulanis become moving with guns that have been given by La Republique, it is no longer civilians, because that's what the government of La Republique want to push, that we are fighting a minority group. But
no, they are not civilians. These are hired mercenaries. These are jihadist mercenaries. They are jihadist mercenaries.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah. We will soon face the same situation Mozambique is facing in Cabo Delgado in Mozambique. That's how it started. These guys went down like that. Before long, before that, it was a full-blown jihadist war. So we're facing that kind, and that's why I say that Ambazonia is in a very, very terrible situation. And this is the thing we must keep on hammering with the Americans, with the British, with whomever we're dealing with. You know?
Right. I think that brings me to my point, Prof, that I wanted to suggest. And also, it's good that SCITH is here, that a lot of the times, since we only talk, we haven't yet had the megaphone to be able to talk on media platforms that are, that the West listen to, and policymakers. It will be I think one way to do this is to write papers on this and submit it to the different embassies in Cameroon. So we need a little bit of somebody like SCITH can give us that information. I mean, and it's good to estimate numbers. Before the war, these are how many Muslims were in this place. And this is how the land in this place was actually the land, or the land in this place. This is how people live. This is the policy, Ambazonia's policy, and this is the current lay of the land. This is how many more Muslims have come in, how much land they have grabbed, and this is their policy. And put these things on paper. Once we put these things on paper, we send copies to we deposit copies and have locals actually, testifying on this. They don't need to use their real names, but really to make these claims. So we can have that information. Once we have that information, we then send it to the American embassy, the British embassy, the UN High Commission there, about these weaponization of religion, this jihad, Islamization of our people, and all of these other issues that we've been talking about. We wrap these things around it and put it on paper. And part of some of that document would also come here to go to the Amazonians in Britain, those in Europe, and those of us here in the United States. We would also have to put it in the hands of the authorities. So to me, this is and figure out a way. Also, it's very easy to have a paper publish this actually in Cameroon, in Ambazonia. So we can then cut those papers and get something in Nigeria, also publish it, so we can cut those papers and not only tweet them, but then use them as part of the evidence that we have. So to me, this is what I think we need to have, a more actionable plan. And that was a question I was asking you. What are the actionable items that we must do? So we must task certain people to do these things and commit them to do this. But then when they do it, we have to give them time frames, within which to complete that assignment, and that we can go from there. So, and I just wanted to, that was a comment I wanted to make, but also just to tell Comrade Charles Agbo, there is absolutely no way.
Emma, we have 2 other hands up.
Yeah, 1 minute or more, or 30 seconds. All right, Alta, you can take the 2 other hands. So let me not.
And then we can come back, because Prof. Prof seems to. No, let Prof finish. Then you can come back to Charles Agbo. I just didn't want us to divert from Prof.
It was still on that same point, but that's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
No, that's fine. I think we can get SCITH to give us that base document. What's happening there? We can then frame it, and then have it distributed as we see fit.
Now, Xfinity in Phoenix. Sorry. In Phoenix, yes. Then man,
Infinity. I think it's Infinity.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
From, precisely from Ground 1, and it's raining now. I don't know whether you people are getting me.
Yes, we can hear you. Prof can hear you.
Thank you. I have some few questions for Profs. I'm very happy we are hearing Profs today. I want first to find out from him. It's so long, Ground 0 has never heard from him, and Ground 1 has never heard from him. I want to find out whether he, as Prof, a senior professor, why is there too much fighting and he's just quiet? Can he look for a college of professors, a college of barristers, and see how he can, all them can enter into this infighting that is taking place in diaspora? Because that infighting alone is causing a lot of problems in Ground 1 and Ground 0. What is he thinking about that infighting? Because I want to derail away from the main topic he was handling here. That's my first question. My second question, what is he thinking about the move of Joe Weber that's going to take place on the 14th of next month in Germany? Because I think that is an initiative that he, Prof, supposed to do. Because he's a senior professor in Southern Cameroon, Ambazonia, that we mostly count on him. But he's too quiet. I don't know whether he is really aware of what is happening. Then my third question, there is too many talking, too many groups. Only the Ambazonians are only basing on talking, but there is no action going on Ground 0 and Ground 1. The little effort that our boys are putting on, the diasporans, they came in and big division among them. And there's too much infighting that's generated from diaspora and has gone down to Ground 1 and Ground 0. What is you, Prof, thinking about that? I raise my case. Thank you.
Raise the case before the lawyer.
Raise his case. No, thank you very much. I think you are spot on, and the points you raised are really, really legitimate. Sometimes you see you don't start resolving any issue until what we say it is ripe for resolution. And I think right now the issues you've raised are ripe for resolution, and I can assure you that there's work that is going on to resolve some of these issues. But in the nature of our people, the results, you will not see them tomorrow. It doesn't mean that we are not working. There's a lot of work that is going on at the moment. Okay. Yeah. And as for Weber, I mean, in fact, just a couple of days, I spoke with him. And yesterday he sent me a mail. I'm aware of his planned visit to Germany and what he's going to do there. I just hope that the reception he gets there is overwhelming, and that perhaps I can have the opportunity also just to say a word at that meeting. So no, we are fine with Weber. I work with him ever since he's been out there. In any case, I don't know, you might not know, Weber was part of the SDF, which we founded, and so I know him very well. There's no problem about that. But look, the issues you've raised, they spring from nature of our people and the nature of which our resistance started. Remember, this was not an organized thing. Our people just had to, our boys, to defend themselves, defend their families, defend their communities, rose up and took arms. People outside, in the diaspora, we started well, you must admit this. But somewhere in between, the devil came in and things just went from bad to worse. But I can assure you that now efforts have been made to repair that. The problem with when somebody falls down is not that he doesn't rise up. The problem is if he falls down and remains down and refuses to stand up. And right now, I can assure you, we are all struggling to stand up, and we will stand up. And we are looking at all these things you are talking about, the division that has been caused on G1 and G0. And I can tell you, very soon those things will be a thing of the past because there's work going on. Not only me, I mean, there's a lot of communities. You were here when you heard about what is happening in the southeast of the United States. You heard other initiatives taken in America, to organize African Americans. You've heard of initiatives being taken left, right, and center. These are initiatives that are cognizant of the fact that we have a problem, and that problem needed to be resolved. And it's going to be resolved, I can assure you that. Thank you for raising them up once more, and thank you for being committed. And I'm very happy that you're on ground zero. Just give all our greetings to all our people there that we are going to proceed with the issues and try to resolve them as best as we can. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Yes, before we take Master, if there is anybody, we've always said it here, sorry, we do not remind our listeners from ground zero and ground one. We prioritize ground zero and ground one. So if there's anybody here, you can just private chat, PM me in the chat, and we will give you, we'll bring you ahead of the line, ground zero and ground one, please. Master, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yes, so thank you, Comrade Ato. Really, Prof, I don't know, thank you so much for your resistance, that you have been in this thing all your life and you are still there and you have never given up, and you have reassured us again. You have given us another strength to continue. Thank you so much. We know that you are the father of this revolution, as you have always been so humble in your way you are going about it, but we are happy to know that you are behind us. And I also appreciate in Phoenix for his question, because that shows that he's really in line with what is happening.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you, Phoenix. And as Prof has promised, I think that he will not let you down. There will be an answer to those questions sooner than later. Yeah, and then talking about the jihadist things and what is happening, what Judson just said is very important. We are still, to an extent, of course, we'll not talk about our details here now. But the only thing I still know that we have what it takes to regain our land. We have what it takes to reorganize ourselves. We have what it takes to beat this Mororo, because that's not their land. So
that's right.
It depends now on us how we are going to do it. And maybe we'll not talk about those details here. There are two things we always say. We don't need a lot of people to sort out these problems. Yes, we don't need a lot of people when it comes to policies, when it comes to making decisions on things like war. You cannot put everybody to be speaking. It's not democracy. But we need a lot of people to donate. So we need a kind of system that people trust for us to donate, and give these guys, even pay them for their efforts, because they are already paying with their blood. Them what they need. So I think as much as we are regrouping in our different small organizations, we should think that large plan that will give our kids what they want every day, every time. And if we, I swear to you, there is, even whether America come and help us or not, we will win this war. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Ma and Esther. That's good. That's a litmus test. We have to just support our fighters, equip them very well, provide them with what they need. They need clothing, they need medical aid, kits. They need basic things. I mean, they're not asking for the basics. And I think we can provide those things to them. We can.
Prof, if I hear Infinix well, I think that Infinix is saying that you are too polite and you are too gentle.
Yes.
And I think that there still has to be some righteous indignation from the likes of you.
Yeah,
right?
He said so. That's true.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Let me be blunt about how I hear him. I mean, that's my own interpretation. That the time has come for some of these people who keep doing these things, because to me, it's not really just the masses. It's a few people. We need to cut off and call out the people who are continuously misleading the masses, the false prophets, the people who are appropriating the revolution, and those people that are, using this now as a milking cow, whether it's their words or their actions. So, and I think that's what I'm hearing from a lot of people too on the ground.
Yes.
When I go, why is Prof smiling when he should really be shouting at these people and, expressing his disgust at some of the things that the people do, or some of the people do. That's what I would say. So I know it's your style. We thank you very much, but I think that we need to see a little bit of righteous indignation.
Oh, yeah.
That's correct.
Prof.
And this is, you're going to see more of that very soon.
You are the father, so don't butcher you.
Thank you, Prof.
You think you can talk to people behind at the back and say, no, don't do this and so on. But when they don't hear, then you now go public.
Thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
Well, Prof, we want to thank you. You have, we know it's very late where you are. You have been with us all day for, you came on when? 5 hours.
6? Yes.
Yeah, you have been us for almost 5.25 hours. We really want to thank you, Prof, for taking the time. We are looking forward to hosting you here. I will not be in Georgia, but I'm part of the U.S. diaspora base, hosting you on Sunday the 8th, when you'll be in Georgia. Yes. Those of us who may not be able to make it down there, we would follow you live. And we thank you for traveling and taking the time around the world to help bring us together and get this thing back on track as it should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Prof, would it be fair to say that you will spend some time here, and you may not only be in Georgia, and some people might also have the chance to meet you elsewhere?
Yes, of course, yes.
Yeah, so that
I'm hoping that you can put all that together, and after Georgia, I travel upland, or I don't know, upland or east or west, whatever.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to let Arthur know so he
can
Prof. Start thinking.
Yes. Thank you so much, Prof.
Can I say
okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Good night, as we say from my end here.
Good night, Prof.
Bye-bye. Prof is not going. Prof.